I'm Brandon Amoroso, and this is the D2Z podcast, building and growing your business from a Gen Z perspective. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into D2Z, a podcast about using the Gen Z mindset to grow your business. I'm Gen Z entrepreneur Brandon Amoroso, founder and president of retention as a service agency, Electric, as well as the co-founder of Scaleless. And today I'm talking with Will Haire, who's the co-founder and CEO at Bellavix, which is a top agency for growing brands across a variety of marketplaces. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, Brandon, thanks for having me, man. I'm pretty pumped to be here and excited to talk about some of my favorite topics, which is growing brands on marketplaces and how we scaled our agency.
Before we jump into all that, can you give everybody just a quick background on yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I've been in the digital marketing game for probably 13 plus years now. I've always worked in agency life to some degree. My background's advertising. Started out at Google. I think Google's the gateway to Amazon. So I started off doing a lot of e-commerce brands through Google SEO and PPC, and then eventually got into Amazon, became the Amazon guy. And then in 2018, decided to start my own business. And we are hyper focused on marketplaces, specifically Amazon and Walmart. And we've been doing that for about 6 years now. So it's been a heck of a journey.
How would you say the industry has evolved, since you started to today? What are some of the biggest, changes, both positive and negative, that you've experienced?
Great question. I'm going to mainly talk to Amazon. Most of our brands are Amazon. So Walmart is just whatever Amazon's doing about 10 years ago. That's where Walmart is today. They are investing significantly into their e-commerce, but their customer journey is still like order online, pick up in store. So if you're a 3P seller, Walmart is somewhere you should have a presence, but not where you should put a lot of investment. Biggest changes, the platforms improved incredibly. When I initially started, they just rolled out advertising on Amazon. They didn't have these pretty graphs and all these targeting capabilities. And since then, that's rolled out where we could do everything from pay-per-click, programmatic advertising, contextual and intent-based ad placements on and off the platform, to now streaming TV. As of January, you can now stream on some of the most popular service providers through Amazon, and we can use that to really fuel top of the funnel. So that's been some of as an advertiser, that's really been some of the most exciting advancements. Some of the biggest issues have really been around fees. It's getting more expensive to operate on Amazon. Not having reins on your brand causes issues. Knockoff products from China is definitely a problem. And for brands that have retail distribution, MAP policy and MAP policy violations is difficult to enforce. And some of the things they can do in affecting your listing in terms of contribution can be really problematic. So there's lots of nuances when it comes to working with brands on Amazon, but it's all good. It's why you work with agencies and why we come up with methodologies to do this effectively.
Yeah, I feel like, Amazon's like the 800-pound gorilla in the room, which comes with its, own pros and cons. I've heard great stories, and then I've heard horror stories. Like if somehow, your account gets suspended or banned, or, maybe you get reviews flagged or something, and then you're sort of left to your own means to try and figure out how to work your way through that organization to get things back up and running.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Brendan, there's a crazy, if you read Modern Retail, I'm a big proponent of their media they put out. They told the story of this married couple that sold diapers, and somebody returned a soiled diaper and it got resold. Amazon didn't really check it to put it in the garbage pile, essentially. So it got resold. That person posted a 1-star review with the picture of the soiled diaper. And this couple scaled their business where they both quit their jobs and they were doing this full time. And that one negative review impacted sales so much that they had to close up the business. So, things like that happen. And it was an FBA thing. It was 100% Amazon's fault. They shouldn't have resold the product. But They weren't able to get the review changed. They weren't able to get Amazon to budge on anything. And it ended up having them to close their business. So it's the Wild West for sure to some degree. And, Amazon can do a better job about protecting sellers. But sometimes they don't.
I mean, I think there's really no recourse though in that case. I mean, what are you going to do? You're not going to go after go after Amazon.
Yeah.
But how what do you think about what they're doing when it comes to things like Amazon Basics and stuff like that? Because I've seen a lot of what could potentially be deemed as anti-competitive
Yeah.
behavior on
Yeah.
the platform with some of those like staple products, which I know I buy because they're the cheapest and they have the most
Yeah.
reviews, which I think is what
Exactly.
a lot of people do.
Yeah. Yeah. You nailed it. The antitrust lawsuit is definitely something that will come to fruition. I mean, if Nina, I think her name's Nina Khan. We'll go with Miss Khan because I know her last name's Khan. But if she continues to push, I think there'll be some changes. Like a big change that just went through is like Amazon's now responsible for any issues in terms of supplement or topical products, so that Amazon can now be sued if like a customer gets a bad breakout or it causes some issues. So they're being really strict with their guidelines to let these types of products in terms of Amazon Basics, they haven't confirmed nor denied, but what they have done, they shut a lot of their apparel companies. They stopped doing the mattress company Pins Tuft and Needle, for
Yep.
example. So they took about 68 of their brands and they closed them up essentially, saying we're not going to distribute them anymore. They haven't confirmed nor denied that they used inside information to pick the products. I mean, one can extrapolate that, yeah, they probably did, but I don't think there's any proof that went out yet. But I also look at it as like, like you go to Target, you get Up and Up. You go to Walmart, you get whatever their brand is. So like there is a certain place for it, and it's like there's nothing illegal about having it, but it's like how they source their products and how they compete in the marketplace and how they make it fair to other sellers is what's going to be kind of fixed. So we'll see. We'll see kind of what happens with that. It is really interesting. So we'll see how it plays out. But I mean, this is something that's going to go on for the next 5 years at least. So we won't probably see any change that makes a difference for a few years. But the fact that they already shut down a bunch of their basic brands is a pretty good sign that they realize that they may be in a little bit of trouble. So they're getting ahead of it.
Yeah. No, I think that's probably the the right thing to do. I mean, not even getting into the whole you know different lines of business that they have and the way that they can use profits from other completely different entities and essentially companies to be able to keep afloat
Yeah.
some of these other marketplaces or product lines that they have. It's very interesting. But enough about the big bad side of Amazon. When it comes to the way that you think about growing a business on the platform, um, I'm assuming you don't say yes to every single client that comes through the door. So what are the things that you're looking for that make you feel like, yes, this is somewhere that we'll be able to add value and there's potential here?
Yeah, a couple things that are really key. It's like the brand. Like we don't work with resellers, so like they need to have their own brand, be working on building their brand. We do take some cold launches, but another big part of it is like, do they have the investment necessary to achieve some type of scale? So we're looking for even getting started. Like if you don't have about a $5,000 a month budget for advertising on a small catalog, we're not going to be the right organization for you. A lot of our tactics involve advertising and using full funnel tactics to get your customers. So for brands that are potentially running out of their garage or they're not investing that heavy, then they're generally not going to be a good fit. In terms of the categories, it varies. Our strong suits, we have lots of supplement brands, pet brands, and beauty companies. So we've been pretty fortunate. Those are like our three sectors that we specialize in. And the tactics that go into it's going to be different for every brand depending on what they're doing. And some products crush it off the bat, and a lot of it's just good product market fit, not a lot of competition. And we can research a lot of this ahead of time to understand what the impact of what we'll be doing will have. And then other times it's just a saturated market, and we need to invest heavy in order to get that initial market share, in order to get reviews and sales velocity, and kind of ramp it up that way. So it varies, but at the minimum, we're working with businesses that are doing at least $2 million a year, If they're cold launches, they have some type of investment from private equity or they've raised some type of funding for us to get started. And 9 times out of 10, there's two ways. They either start on Amazon to prove uh, that it has a unique they have some type of unique selling proposition, and then they roll out to the website. But more often than not, I find that companies will start on their website, they'll get initial sales, and then they'll want to move over to Amazon. And personally, I think that's better because then we're tapping into something that they're already starting to build the brand, they're already getting a customer base. So it makes cold launches a little easier on the platform instead of doing it the other way around. But there's no right way or wrong way.
What are some of the ways that you go about that review generation aspect? Because that would be the most daunting thing for me if I was entering into Amazon, whether with a net new product or, I have a Shopify store and now I want to go into other channels. Because like I don't buy anything on Amazon that doesn't have at least, 105 plus or 105 star reviews. Because especially so many of the product categories are highly competitive. I mean, you have 5, 10, 15, 20 competing solutions, all from various brands, depending on what you're purchasing. So how do you go about that initial review generation without also, dipping into the area of some of those gray or black hat tactics that are going to end you up on the wrong side of Amazon?
So they will definitely catch you. We're actually like one of, I think, 79 US agencies in the Amazon Service Provider Network. So everything we do is within Amazon's terms of service. So the reviews are pretty cut and dry. They're a result of sales velocity. We got to do what we can to get sales velocity up. They have the Vine program, so we can get up to 30 reviews on your products by enrolling them into the Vine program. I think it's like $200 per parent or per child, but it's $200 per ASIN, we'll just say. And that's a great way to get your initial reviews. And then the request a review feature on the back end gives us the ability to solicit messages for emails, and it's all through Amazon's template, so we're not doing anything crazy. Package inserts work really well, but you got to be careful of the language. You can't be asking for a positive review, you're just asking for some feedback. And the technology is so much better now. You can link a QR code and all that fun stuff. And then outside of that, so we'll put those pieces in place to capture reviews as they come in. There's also the post-purchase email sequence, which is another opportunity. And then outside of that, we're going to be advertising. So typically what we do is we run them through the Vine program, unless it's something very subjective. Then like for a fragrance company, for example, you're probably not going to want to run them through Vine because you're probably going to get like mediocre reviews because it's a very subjective type of product. So typically what we do is we would just start advertising to get the initial purchases, and we would focus like off Amazon tactics in order to get those initial customers, because we're able to showcase the product in a different light, and we're not competing against all the other products. It's a little more of an expensive cost per acquisition, but that's the way to get the initial sales. And to your point, like technically retail ready is like 15 reviews above 4 stars is like pretty good to start advertising, or you'll start seeing improvement in efficiency in your advertising. But you brought it up earlier, like you hit on the head, like the goal is to get to like 100 reviews. When you get to 100 reviews, then you could sway somebody from buying that more reviewed product because you're competing on something that might be missing, and we'll be able to get traction to the listing. So there are a couple ways to go about it, but the biggest point is don't take any shortcuts and just buy reviews. They will definitely catch you. And use the tools that are on Amazon. They give us a lot of tools to get some of these reviews. And then you're going to have to leverage some off Amazon tactics. We're an advertising agency, so I'm going to recommend ads. I'm sure there's other ways you can go about it. And do be careful with friends and family. It's crazy how it doesn't work 100% of the time, but we had a brand we work with, and they did this without telling us. But the guy had his
That's always the best. That's always the best when they go off.
Oh, I know. We got it shut down, and then he didn't even really want to admit it, but he came out clean eventually. But he had his mom purchase a product and leave a review, but somehow the mom's account was connected to his account, and then Amazon flagged it, and then took away that review, and then found out more friends and family did it. So the listing got completely suspended. So we had to do a plan of action and go through a whole big song and dance to get him back on the platform. And what was even more challenging, it was a new to market brand. So nobody knew this. We didn't have any sales velocity, and we pretty much came in the door to say, yeah, Amazon, we use unethical business practices. So it was difficult and it required us to hire a lawyer to get them back on. There are legal services that specialize in this, and we can only do so much. So we wrote the initial plan of action. It got rejected, and then we had to bring in a legal service, and they used their scary lawyer language, which they went to school to get really good at that. And then they were able to like clean that up and we were able to list the product and start selling it. But we were out for like 6 months. Like it was a long process to get it going, because like Amazon's in no rush. It's your fault. So it was.
Yeah,
it was
I mean, they've got millions of sellers. Get in line.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it feels like Amazon's one of those platforms that you don't want to ask for forgiveness after the fact. You just want to, never be in that situation. Whereas typically in most things, I would act first and then ask for forgiveness later. I would not employ that strategy with
a very entrepreneurial mindset. I tell my people that all the time. Ask for forgiveness, but to your point, there's certain areas where you're like, no, we gotta play by the rules.
Yep. You have to ask for permission from some folks and from some platforms. It seems like Amazon is one of those platforms that things will just get easier over time as you scale more and more.
Yeah.
I'm assuming running ads for a company that has a product with 5,000 reviews is a lot easier than running ads for a company that has 50. So like, do you see sort of as the reviews and the social proof and everything continues to increase that the cost per acquisition starts to decrease?
Yeah, you nailed it. I give you guys some rough numbers because we do a decent amount of launches, and like there's unicorns all over the place. Like I could tell you about a pet company we just launched, but typically what we're looking at is like your first 3 months, like 80 to 100% of your ad spend is going to be to acquire customers. So you may even be acquiring customers. Typically, you're acquiring customers at a loss because like the product has no reviews. We don't really have any traction. Who knows what we're competing on? But generally from like the 3 month mark to that 6 month mark, we're improving that. So we should expect to be around maybe like 60 to 80%. We use tacos, total advertising cost of sale, which is just spend divided by your total sales, advertising, organic, because they influence each other. So like we shoot to be between 60 and 80. By the time you're like 12 to 18 months, if we could be around 30 to 40% tacos, like that's pretty good. That's average. Mature brands, we're typically shooting for like 20%. A mature brand has X amount of reviews, but they're generally over 18 months on the platform. Like every category is different. It could take a lot of reviews to break into a beauty category, where a snack food category for something really niche, it could just be 100 reviews and you're good. So it varies, but typically for like a brand that's, a good size brand selling a decent, let's say over $100,000 a month, 20% tacos is where to go. When we work with enterprise level brands, so now we're talking like when we worked with Instant Pot, for example, or Wilton, which is a huge cooking-ware company, their tacos is like 5%, maybe 4%, but it's because they have such a large retail distribution. People, Instant Pot, and you recognize it everywhere. So it's synonymous with the category. And those, we're looking at like under 5% tacos, but it varies. It varies on the maturity. It varies on how the customer sentiment towards your product. So a lot goes into it. So yeah, hopefully that gives you guys some good baseline data to look at if you're launching on the marketplace.
What's like the minimum advertising budget that you would recommend for a brand if they're starting net new? Like they want to get to that point that you're mentioning, but they got to spend to get to that point. So what's like the rough guidelines you would give for that?
So it depends how long you want to be in that awkward teenage phase, we'll say. If we're talking minimum and it's like one product, like at least $1,000, $1,500, and you could probably just do basic PPC and some like up like mid funnel tactics, mainly conquesting, so going after competitor brands and going after competitor search queries, and that's kind of the minimum. Typically, because the brands we work with, like they want sales quick, they want to be profitable, within 6 months, typically within 3 months. So we'd be looking for like $5,000 on the low end for maybe 1 to 2 SKUs to kind of get it going, and then scaling it up from there. And the 5K, what we do different and what that 5K does, it's PPC, it's bottom of the funnel. It's programmatic advertising through Amazon demand side platform, DSP. So we're going to do bottom of funnel, retarget anybody who visited your product page but didn't make a purchase, visited competitors' pages but didn't make a purchase, and then catching people who's shown intent. So they're either searching in market or they're searching or they've engaged content around what we're actually selling. We're able to do that all through DSP, and we could get them on and off the platform. So we're able to capture them if they're browsing mobile applications or they're browsing websites. Like everybody sees the banner ads when they show up. And then we will add in a layer of streaming TV to keep that top of the funnel, but we'll keep it really targeted on a specific like demographic or something that's shown intent and retargeting, and then keep that going because we got to build that brand awareness. And anybody follows advertising, Ogilvy, who's like the godfather of modern day advertising, it's like that exposure technique. Like they need to see it 20 or 30 times. And so by having touch points at every phase of the funnel gives us the opportunity to kind of pull more of those customers in. And that's the most important part early on. And the goal is like what's our cost per acquisition, and then how can we get that as low as possible, as fast as possible. And it just takes time, repetitions and time.
Right. Well, that makes sense. Well, I got one last question for you here. What is like the one tip or trick that you would recommend to anybody going into Q4 this year?
Oh, Q4. That's a good one. One tip or trick. Oh, okay. I got a couple good ones, but participate in all the holidays. So like October, you have Amazon Prime Day 2.0, Fall Prime Day. It's had many names, but you'll have Prime Day, and it'll actually kick off in the season, and it doesn't cannibalize sales from Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Even if it's a minimum discount, always participate because shoppers are going on there expecting some type of discount. So even if you just do a 5% discount, it's something, and it will be enough to sway some of these shoppers. The second biggest piece I'd say, and I would focus this as November starts and even late October if you have the budgets for it, but make sure that you're targeting mid and upper funnel pretty aggressively in the early phases to get shoppers who are going to go online. They're going to add stuff to cart, and they're going to wait to see if it goes on sale by Black Friday and Cyber Monday. So like what a lot of advertisers miss is they just focus on that bottom of the funnel. They advertise, maybe they increase bids because demand increases, but they're not being proactive in their advertising strategies. So big opportunity is to build that mid and upper funnel so that when it's go time and we get to that week of Black Friday and Cyber Monday, you have a larger audience of people who've engaged your content, who've engaged the market, and who are potentially ready to make a purchase. So you'll be able to have a larger return on your investment. So you're going to eat it for a little bit, and we're not talking like a ton. It's just your cost per clicks are going to be higher because demand goes up, and your conversion rate's going to be a little lower because you're doing these mid and upper funnel tactics. But understand, you're going to be able to run that audience from Black Friday, Cyber Monday, all the way through December 22nd or 23rd. And a lot of people don't realize this. The week before the 22nd, so like we'll just say the 15th to the 22nd, is as equal of a holiday as Black Friday and Cyber Monday, because they're all doing that last minute Christmas shopping. They're all trying to get that 2-day shipping so that they can have great gifts for their kids. So, by fueling that funnel in November is going to give you outstanding opportunities to end your Q4 on a high note. And then don't forget gift card shoppers the last 2 weeks into January before you start scaling back spend and getting things in a place that's healthy for sure. So hopefully that's a good tip for any of your audience listening and wondering, what am I going to do for Q4?
Start spending now. That's the...
Yes. I like that.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your insights. I know this will definitely be valuable for all the Amazon sellers, especially as they go into Q4 and hopefully don't get their wrist slapped either before the holiday season starts. But before we hop, can you let everybody know who's listening where they can find you online or connect with you?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks again for having me, Brennan. This was a lot of fun. It's Will Haire, like on your head with an E. You could track me down on LinkedIn. I post stuff pretty regularly, so feel free to check that out. And if you go to my website, bellavix.com, VIX.com, we have a newsletter you can subscribe to. We post updates on a weekly basis as things change on the back end and its implication to sellers. We have a huge audience that follows that. So it's a great opportunity just to stay ahead of the curve as Amazon is always changing, which is great. Keeps me gainfully employed, but it's painful for the sellers we represent because we got to keep on top of all these changes.
Well, again, I appreciate it. For everybody listening, as always, this is Brandon Amoroso. You can find me at brandonamoroso.com, electricmarketing.com, or scaleless.ai. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you next time.